Welcome back, viewers, and we are here with our first part of Meet the Candidates, Women Voters Matter. And I'm here representing Cyril Titi as the chair, and our co-moderator is Ms. Terry Ince of SIDO Committee of Trinidad and Tobago. We've been chatting here with the candidates who are going up for Tobago East and West, independent candidates, party-affiliated candidates, and we're here to chat with Nickosy Phillips, who is the political leader for Unity of the People. Welcome, Nickosy.
Pleasant good morning to the viewers. Ms. Ince, it's a pleasure to meeting you and the rest of the panel to make updates, all the listening public. Good morning.
It's lovely to have you here with us. Yeah, we have so much to talk about. You've just returned from the Beijing, the CSW 69, and we've been looking at, this year, 2025, is the 30th anniversary of that Beijing Platform for Action, and a lot of preparations are happening now in terms of the reporting that we'll have to do in September. So I'm very happy to have you here with us, who you're tuned in and tapped into what's happening in terms of the CSW, which is the Committee on the Status of Women, and as well the Beijing Platform for Action. Seeing that you're one of those candidates who is already tapped into that, could you share with our viewers what's been happening in terms of CSW and your participation in the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action? And I am going to let Ms. Terry Ince take full control of this session because this is her wheelhouse. She and her organization, SIDO Committee for Trinidad and Tobago, have been doing quite a bit of work and is still working very hard to make sure we commemorate and celebrate that 30th anniversary. So tell us, Nickosy, what has been happening with you and your organizations in terms of the CSW and the Beijing Action for Platform?
Well, this year I represented the CSW under the African Union. Not really Trinidad and Tobago, but I still flown the flag. From Trinidad and Tobago Youth Will Rise joined on to the African nation that would have accepted me and given me the opportunity to be at the CSW. I think the 2 days before the declaration, I was on the table. They were doing some changes as to what changes would they accept in the Beijing Declaration, especially going to now technology and upgrading through technology. Gender issues and the issues of women rights and stuff is a strong advocation in that Beijing Declaration. And I've just been participating and giving my 2 cents as not only an ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago Youth Will Rise, but also the political aspect and also being someone in the Caribbean aspect on that thing. So it was really good. I hope that some of the things that I would have learned and the delegation that I would have taken to the event, we learned a lot in terms of the laws and the upgrades to the laws, and therefore seeing that Trinidad and Tobago supposed to have representation there, has representation there. We are not seeing those things being enacted in legislation, and also the policies here, it's not being enforced. It's not being put into the education aspect whereby we can bring that information to the people of Trinidad and Tobago and pass it on. I think I heard the minister earlier talking about NGO participation, and they talk about it, but it's not being done. So I think having the opportunity to be on that Beijing Declaration discussion and the panel, it was really great. I have a lot in store for Trinidad and Tobago as it relates to gender equality. And for me, gender equality is not just only about female and the protection of female, but it also has to stem with men as well, men and young boys.
That's right. I'm glad you brought up that point. We do need to make sure that we're looking at balance in our society, proportionate representation and balance, 50-50. Yes, Terry?
So welcome, Nickosy. I think I ran into you during CSW this year, and yeah, it's a place where we in Trinidad and Tobago, of course, we will single out Trinidad and Tobago, but I think in general, CARICOM needs to have a bigger presence. I think that, and I think we can agree to that. Trinidad and Tobago has been making strides and has made strides in past CSWs. We were not as present this year in en masse, I would say, but there were pockets of representation throughout, and it was very good to see there the platform, the declaration that was agreed to in its entirety. So there was no haggling over language as had been done in the past, which is a good thing. And much of the information from the past declarations, the language was protected, so we didn't see the regressive language that some countries were pushing for. We saw that the CSW held firm in terms of gender. For instance, there were some countries wanting to remove that term entirely from from the declaration, and so we saw the pushback on that. So I'm glad that you were there. I'm glad that you have a good sense of the importance of Trinidad and Tobago and individual organizations as well, not just the country, but civil society organizations and just people understanding that what's happening at the global level is impacting us at the local and national level. And it's important for us to be engaged with what's going on there. We need to stay informed in order, because we're operating in a global space. Yes, we're in Trinidad and Tobago, but this is part of the globe, and we need to take that a little bit more seriously. So congratulations on your representation at the African Union, and I'm happy that you were still flying the flag no matter how you're doing it.
Thank
Because
you.
Trinidad and Tobago has always contributed richly to the CSW process. I would dare say the region, our CARICOM region, has richly contributed to the CSW process and to the Beijing, going all the way back to 1995 in Beijing. And we need to acknowledge that that work is memorialized. It has not changed. It's documented, and we just now have to continue to well, share that information, to educate people on how we have contributed, and also continue that legacy so that nothing gets lost. But bringing it back to our election process, if I may, one of the things that we know was coming out of the Beijing Platform for Action, the 12 key issues, as you know, were women in politics, right? That's one of the 12 key issues. Women in leadership is how it's framed. If you look at the substantive articles of the CEDAW, it's framed as women in politics, women in representation, and we see it also as SDG 5, gender equality in the SDGs. So throughout, you're seeing the same things being, the same areas of concern resurging in all of these very key mechanisms. And so I'm wondering, as a person that's running for political office in 2025, in the upcoming election, what do you think needs to be done intentionally at the very inception as you land in that office to bring all of these things together? Because none of this is new to us. It's not new. It's been going on for decades. We've talked about it for decades. We said that with one of the previous candidates. These discussions have been going on for decades. So now, how do we actionize it, and actionize it in a way that it addresses our individual lived experiences? So whether I'm in Scarborough or Pigeon Point or Tunapuna or Arima or Port of Spain, I can see myself in that policy because it resonates with what I am experiencing. What do you think we need to do to get from where we are today to there?
Well, first of all, I'm going to respond in three parts as an MP, as a representative for the constituency West, and also as a future Prime Minister. So I'm going to level the playing field straight on.
Lovely.
The first thing that I need to do is look at the policies, the existing policies. Anybody going into office has to look at the existing policies, see where we have failed, and then see where we can upgrade. We have to look at education awareness. We have to look at legislation and policy. Now, we can do the legislation and the policy, but it has to unite with the United Nations since we have signed on treaties and since we are part of the CSW. It also has to do not with the legislation and policy, but it has to do with the enforcement of the laws, the types of social services that we have to enforce the laws, because we are seeing that yes, we have restraining orders, but it's not being enforced. When they go 10 times, 300 times to the police station, nothing has been done. They just talk to the other person and vice versa. Then after the person is killed, we then see ministers or we see government now going to do something or now going to put something even harsher. We have to make the laws very harsh, very strict. We have to level the playing field in terms of gender equality. We cannot, and I continue to say it, and I've started the conversations last year at the CSW, we cannot continue to enforce or to put laws for the protection of women and not protect the rights of men. Because when you do that, we have to also start the conversation of educating our young men. When we are having conversations with the women, we need to engage young men in the conversation, because remember, we are putting policies for men or the protection of women, but men are not nowhere in the conversation, so they can understand why we put in the policies, understand how they can interpret the policies that we put. So we have to put harsh measures in place. We have to look at the existing policies, see how best we can upgrade it, but education awareness is very, very important and crucial. It has to look at the healthcare system in terms of the social system. How do we rehabilitate a battered woman? How do we rehabilitate these types of gender abuse and gender-based violence? We must educate the police service. We must educate the laws, that the laws come intact with the police service, so the police service can use and utilize the policies to the right effect, making sure that these gender-based violence, whether men or women who abuse each other, they don't get off that easily. We have to be more strict. We also have to look at community awareness. We sometimes have gender-based violence where men and women are arguing, and then somebody pick up the best thing for you to do is to pull out your phone. Instead of calling the police service, you're on the phone taping and say, somebody call the police. The same time you're taking to do that, you could have called the police and then after pull out your phone. You know, we have to, it has to be a cultural thing, and it all stems down to a cultural identity. And if we do identify ourselves and understanding what we're about, none of these policies would exist, it wouldn't work. We also have to start that level of gender equality at the school level. We have to educate and start from that level coming up. So therefore now, as I said to somebody, if you teach your child to hate, that you could take that time to teach your child to love. So therefore now, we have sometimes looking at crucial times where we see our young girls are being abused in the homes and stuff, and we have to, it's a whole approach that we need to do. We have to rethink and relook at the policies we have, engage those policies, and look at how we can change the policies to work in the curriculum. We are part of a curriculum nation. We also have to look at extending it to an international level, because Trinidad and Tobago right now, to be honest, ministers could come and say what they want to say. We are way behind time. Way behind time.
You brought up an important point, Nickosy, that I think all the women-focused organizations, all the male-focused organizations, and CSOs on a whole, and NGOs would have to agree with you. When we are looking at different policies and different focuses, we have to activate allyship. Wherever we are looking to make a change, we have to make sure, if it is focused on women, we have to bring the men along, and we have to include them in that conversation, and vice versa. If it's a male-focused issue, we have to bring the women along, and if we have to make a balanced conversation happen in the society. So I think that's an important point that a a lot of times, a lot of people don't understand the importance of that allyship. I was having a conversation with an NGO I'm in, and the conversation was that, well, let's look to partner with a male-based organization, and let's, whatever their issues are, we tag along and help, support, and whatever our issues are, they tag along and help support. And the pushback was, men have everything, why we have to help them? And, I'm asking this in that context. From your experience, how can we make allyship, whether it is men to be allies for women issues and vice versa, how can we make allyship a part of our culture and our society? And as a potential member of parliament, what would you do to ensure that that is something that is the part of our fabric of our CSOs, NGOs, and the way that we approach gender issues?
First thing, we have to destabilize politicizing everything and every issue as it relates to gender. We also have to look at supporting our NGO-based organization, not just using an NGO for political gain and stuff. We have to look at the NGOs in the community, look at funding, the source of funding. Try to send our NGOs to all these critical meetings at the CSW, international meetings. But it's not just about sending them. There must be a report. There must be programs coming out of what you learned. We have to look at enabling the voices of our community, channeling us to the critical issues. How do we address them? How do we put forward implementations to those issues? And also it has to be at an individual strength as well. Economic empowerment, that is the most important thing that we're missing, because some of these issues are based on financial constraint, can't sustain themselves, the women depending on men financially, and those financial gains and abuse are coming along that. So it's a long process that I have policies in place, because I have put together over 257 policy or projects as it relates to gender equality on both women and young girls and men and young boys. But it's just to get those things done, because even though when I go to the CSW and I come back here, I can't do the programs because, one, you don't get the use of sometimes the center or sometimes places, or you're being restrained by political biases and stuff. So therefore, implementation of these things cannot happen because we are politicizing every single thing that we do. And unless we get the politics out of it and we have proper leaders who will literally focus on the development, not only the development of the people, but the social, economic development of our people of Trinidad and Tobago, and as it relates to gender equality across the border, and understanding the definition of genders and accepting and respecting, we will not get forward in this fight at all. It will just be a stagnant thing. When something happens, somebody get killed, we go on TV, we talk about it. Look at the political parties groups. These women groups that we have, they don't speak on behalf of women when they're battered. They will protect the prime minister. They will protect their party leaders. But when it comes to protecting a woman and a young girl who's been battered, who's been killed, you don't hear their voices. They don't match. Where are the political voices and the political women group leaders that are supposed to advocate for women? All you see them coming up and say they do 2 little programs and that's it for the year. We need to have a level of respect for our people first before party. And unless we accept and understand our part as representatives first, then becoming an MP, and then becoming even future ministers of the different divisions, we will not get anywhere. And that is what we're seeing. And that is what I hear everybody talking, all the hullabaloo. And then when they get into the position, nothing happens. And it is only NGOs like us who suffer, and the person we do all the groundwork. And I'm saying, if you are an MP and you do not get in touch with all the NGOs across Trinidad and Tobago to find out what are the ground issues, you will be lost forever. And I don't think for me, I am grounded. I am in the right field. I have been at the CSW, so this is a battleground for me that is very clear and understanding. So it's just for me now to implement, or to be given the position to be elected into office, to not only focus on gender equality, but there are other pressing matters that Tobago needs to be developed about, and hoping that if I do get that nod anytime soon, I have work to do.
Yes, I can agree with you more when you say you have
question,
work to do. Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We're
So
out
let
of
me
time
ask
though,
this
Terry,
question.
so we're going to do this briefly. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I know we're running close on time, but you've said so much. I noted 10 key areas that you highlighted in response to your first question, from examining existing policies all the way to engaging more fully with CARICOM, and everything in between. So let's just fast forward, and you are elected, but you're elected as a minority representative, right? Your party is not in the majority, but you are in the parliament.
Mhm.
How, and you spoke about allyship and supporting allyship. So how do you now, as a minority leader in parliament, bring all of the parliament together to enact or to advance some of the progressive initiatives that you have outlined? And just pick one, anyone, doesn't have to be all of them, but just pick one. How would you go about bringing everybody together to focus on this one thing that you are championing?
Right. First thing first, you can align yourself with the majority. If not, if the majority doesn't endorse that, I have the outside resources. That is why I've been channeling myself at the United Nations, making partnership with the high-profile leaders, the ministers of different foreign affairs, focusing on all the agendas. So as the MP, I will not just, if I don't get the support from the government or the majority or there, my hands can stretch very far to getting the resources internationally to make sure the work done. Now I will have the ability and the power now to access all these policies within the community of Tobago West, and not only Tobago West, engaging Tobago East. So as I said, some of us think that we have to depend on the government for everything. No. Once I have been putting myself out there internationally, it is not enough for me to now snap my fingers and tap and pull all those international resources to get the work done. And that is what is needed. So I'm not going to sit here and tell myself a lie and say, if they do, oh, I'm going to get supported by the majority or whatever. No. Once I'm elected, I have work to do, and I have to put these programs and policies in place. I have to bring policies to the both sides, opposition and the majority of the government, and say, listen, this is one of the policies I would like to address. Let's see how best we can address it. If they don't give me the help, go internationally, get the funding that I was supposed to get the partnership that I would have put from since 2018 to now. They're just waiting for me to get that position to put these things in effect. And if I do get the position, I'm sure I could tell you the work that others would not have done in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, I could do in one term. And that's a fact. I can put money on that for sure.
I like that. She's putting money where her mouth is. She can do it in one term. We want to thank Nickosy Phillips, the political leader for Unity of the Party, representing the area of
Unity of the
Tobago.
people.
Unity of the people. There's so many parties, Nickosy, so many parties. She is the political leader of Unity of the People, representing the Tobago West area when she goes to the poll on April 28th. And we want to thank you for being here with us, Nickosy. Quite enlightening and so much to talk about. We're looking to head into chatting with our final candidate, who has come